Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. I'm your host Chef Andy, and as usual I'm always here looking for the best ideas to share with you. Today I'm going to be sharing some inspiration from the beautiful island of Madagascar. I'm going to show you how to make some very beautiful goat. Originally the recipe contains chicken, but I'm going to be showing you my own twist to this. And without further ado, I'm going to start by introducing the ingredients we'll work with today. So I've got some coconut oil at the front there. I've got some regular salt. I've also got a bit of curry powder, some garlic powder, some cumin powder, some cinnamon powder, some oil there, a bit of dried marjoram, and a bit of pumpkin seeds. I also have some white onions, some basil, some coriander, a bit of jasmine rice, some beautiful pumpkin leaf puree, some garlic, some ginger, some lemon, some beautiful cut there of goat, and last but not least, just some regular room temperature water. So we're going to take a short break now. If you're going to be taking any notes for this particular dish, or if you're going to be writing down the recipe, this is your chance to grab your pens and papers, and when we come back from the break, we're just going to go right into this beautiful dish, and I'm just going to show you how easy it is. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're just about to start off this beautiful dish, so I'm just going to grab some of the ingredients we'll be working with. So I'm working with an array of spices today, and as I said, a lot of influence with this particular dish. Remember, Madagascar has come a long way with its traditions with food. A lot of mainland influences have come in over the years. Some spices have also been incorporated into their dishes. Also some very beautiful, very different cooking techniques that have now been moved from what they used to be to something a little more modern, and that is exactly what we are going to be doing today. So we are going to be bringing a beautiful classic grandma recipe, and we're just going to be bringing it to you with a bit of a twist. So very simply, I'm just going to have a pot going first, and the first thing we're going to do is brown our meat. Remember, very particularly crucial that you brown your meat before cooking everything else in. First of all, for the reason that you will actually be able to cook off any excess fat. You actually manage to build some flavors from the beautiful bones and the meat that you're going to be frying up together. And the best part of it all is you actually manage to tenderize your meat the best way when you do it this way. So very simple. I'm going to be using some oil, and I'm also going to be using some coconut oil. So I'm just going to go with about a tablespoon of coconut oil. So this is just very regular, very oriental. You can be able to purchase this at your regular convenience stores. And a bit of vegetable oil. So the reason why I'm using a bit of the two is one actually really helps in helping to brown the meat really well, and then the coconut actually comes in by actually just giving it a bit of a flavor. So I'm just going to start by dropping these chunks of meat, and as you can see, most of them are nice and chunky. They haven't been cut down. So what you're looking for, especially for this particular dish, I particularly like to get the cut of meat maybe from the rib, or actually from the four quarters. This particularly because the meat actually does carry a bit of fat that is just really good once that actually fries up in your pan. Second of all, it actually costs a little much less as opposed to the more supreme cuts. So this is not a bad option to go with if you're making something as simple as this particular dish. So we're going to turn up the heat. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to brown that uncovered. So I'm just going to take the lid off completely. And now in the pot on the side here, I also have some water that's been steaming for a few minutes. So we're actually just going to allow that to continue to just come to the boil. And what we're going to do is we're going to be cooking this beautiful rice. And I'm just going to pull off some of the ingredients here. So to the goat now, we're going to be incorporating some of the ingredients. So I'm going to go in with some curry powder. We're going also with some cumin powder, a bit of the ginger powder as well, and a bit of the cinnamon powder. So I've basically gone 1 teaspoon of each of them, so they were all actually just weighed out in equal measure. And basically, as I said, you want to start off the pan like that and you want it to continue going on high heat, particularly for the two reasons that goat does have, with this particular cut of lamb, it does have quite a bit of fat. So that is actually going to take a few seconds to cook down. But while that continues, we're just going to combine a few other ingredients that we'll be adding to the pan. So firstly, I'm going to start by chopping up some white onion. Just take the tips off. And just quickly just slice those into some beautiful half moons. Right, simple as that. We're going to be using 2 onions for this recipe. And for the goat, I'm using about 1 kilo of meat. So I would always work out 1 kilo of meat to 3 medium-sized onions or 2 large onions. Really works out really well. So you're just going to quickly finish chopping up the onions. We can discard the tips. So just very, very crucial that you just keep mixing the meat as it continues to cook. Right, so this is going to be going for about another 20 minutes, so definitely just give it a bit of time to continue. And while this continues, I'm just gonna quickly move my onions to the side. So we're basically gonna add those a little later. But in the meantime, we do have our water boiling and we're just about to go in with the rice. So I'm just going to take just a little bit of that fresh coriander. And we're just going to quickly just finely chop that. Right, so about 1 tablespoon of coriander straight into the water. And to that, I'm also going to be incorporating a bit of salt. And we're also going to be adding a bit of that beautiful dried marjoram. And last but not least, just a little bit of oil. So remember, it's always just handy to have a bit of oil in the water that you're cooking your rice in. First of all, it helps to really give a beautiful flavor, especially if you work with olive oil. And second of all, it actually avoids your rice from sticking to each other, the grains from sticking to each other rather. So very, very simply, just going to use a spoon and just give that a quick mixture. And we're just going to add, so I'm basically using jasmine rice, so this is about 3/4 cup. Remember, this has already been cleaned. Right, all I'm going to do now is give it a quick mixture with a spoon. I'm just going to turn up the heat and we're just going to allow that to come to the boil. And in the meantime, I'm just going to continue frying the meat till it's very, very dark in color and brown. So remember two particular very crucial things to remember when you're browning your meat. A lot of the flavors are going to remain in the pan, so it's very, very crucial that you take your time to brown them really well. You also want to control your temperature. You don't want it to be too hot and it gets your meat overcooked. You just want it to be hot enough to be able to continue breaking the tendons in the meat. Right, so easy as that. We're going to allow this to continue cooking for another few minutes. And while that continues, I'm just going to explain something here, one of the ingredients I'll be working with. So this is basically just pumpkin leaves that I actually steamed up a little earlier in the show. And then I blended this with a bit of olive oil, a bit of salt, and a bit of water just to get it a bit runny. So this we're actually going to be incorporating into the dish much later. So this is actually going to be one of the last things we're adding. And as I said, particularly for this beautiful recipe, very much a mainland kind of inspired dish. A lot of influences have come in and built along the way. So there is actually a lot to be able to pick out from this recipe. And as I said, some of these recipes have changed with time. A bit of modification comes in as well with a difference to ingredients and a difference to generations. But you actually come to realize that the more advances they continue to make, the more interesting the dishes become. Right, so we're just going to keep browning the meat. So this particular stage, as I said, always give it a bit of time. In the meantime, we're just going to mix our rice. So simply, the rice we just seasoned with a bit of marjoram and a bit of parsley and salt. That should be cooking for about 6 to 10 minutes. So you actually want to start that after you start browning your meat, especially if you're just trying to really get them to sit on the table or get to your table at dinner at the same time. Very, very crucial point to take note of. And as well for the same dish, you can actually alternatively use chicken in place of lamb. It will still make a very good recipe. Right, so everything's now just about going really well. The rice is now just about halfway cooked. So we're basically just going to allow this to continue till it's done. We're also going to continue browning the meat and give it a bit of color. And we're also going to break for a really, really quick break. But when we come back, I'm actually going to show you how to finish off this particular dish. We're just going to allow the rice to also steam till it's fully cooked. And we're just going to take it off the heat. But please don't touch that dial. You don't want to miss the last part of the show when we finish this beautiful dish. I am sure you're definitely going to enjoy it. So see you after a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are with us just before the break, we were just browning some meat and now we're just taking it out. And to the pot on my far left as well, we have some beautiful steamed rice that we're going to be serving with this shortly. But just to show you the basics of how to just complete this beautiful dish, right after browning the meat, very, very crucial to start cooking everything else separately and then incorporate the meat later. This is for two reasons. First of all, to allow it to actually rest, and second of all, to avoid it from overcooking. So we're just going to rest that for a few seconds. But on the same pot, I'm not even going to change anything in there. We're just going to start by adding everything else that we had remaining. So that entails a bit of onions. I'm also going to be throwing in one nice big root of ginger. And this I'm just going to smash like that. So we're just going to add them whole as they are. And then just continue to fry everything in that beautiful lamb fat. And remember, that is basically where most of my flavor is going to be coming from. So to that, I'm also going to add about 4 cloves of garlic. So very simple. Just using your knife and your hand. That should actually be the best tools you could actually use to peel your garlic. And it's very quick, as you can see, very, very easy. The shells come out really fast when you do it in that process. You can alternatively also throw them in a food processor if you have one, if you're looking for some minced garlic. Also another technique. Alright, so I think we're going to go in with a 3. Should be about enough. So very simply, after peeling, just slice everything up really nice and easy. Right, simple as that. So 1 tablespoon chopped garlic. Right, so as that is now continuing on to just continue, as that continues to build, going to be adding also just a bit of water. Remember, water does 2 particular things when you're cooking. Water actually helps you to try and cool down your pan a little faster. Second of all, it actually helps you to just combine most of the ingredients that are sitting on the sides of your pan. So I particularly like to add just a bit of water and then just continue mixing vigorously. So the water actually helps you wash down most of the flavors that are hanging on the sides of your pot. And it actually just brings and incorporates most of those ingredients together. So very, very crucial to actually use a bit of water when cooking. Now to that, I'll also be adding just a bit of lemon, but I'm going to be using just the zest. So I'm just going to quickly use a knife to just take off about 2 strips of that beautiful green skin on the top. Remember to also always avoid the white part. That's actually the bitter part, and it actually will ruin the flavor. So I personally like to take a bit of the skin out, and then just using a knife and the help of a chopping board, this should actually allow you to really get that very, very thin white membrane of the lemon zest out, leaving you with just the green parts. So very, very easy technique to do so. If you also own a zester, or if you do have a grater, that will actually also help. But particularly for this, because I want them really nice and big, I prefer to just slice them off myself. And then simply with just julienne those. So simple as that, and that now goes into the same pot. So the zest actually just helps you to really activate the flavors of all the spices in there. Also gives a nice, beautiful, refreshing finish. And now to that, we're going to be adding some of that beautiful pumpkin leaf puree. So particularly I like to use it, and it's the same kind of puree you'd be using, for instance, if you're making something like a beef or a lamb chimichurri. So it's very much like the chimichurri recipe. Right, now that's in there. We're just going to season that about half a teaspoon of salt. And we're also going to add just a bit of black pepper. And very simply just cook that down slightly. I'm just going to add the rest of that as well. So what you want to do at this stage is just cook it a little bit and just allow the pumpkin leaf puree to actually just infuse with the flavors from the onions and the bit of water we added earlier. Once it gets to that part, this is basically just the finishing, and it is as simple as that. So I'm going to be using about a tablespoon of some basil, fresh basil if you prefer. I'm just going to combine those leaves like that. Normally, I personally like to just lay them on top of each other like that, and then just roll them on the chopping board once, right around, and then just let your knife just do the shredding for you. So simple as that. So that should be about 3/4 tablespoon of basil. Just going to add that in there. And last but not least, some of that beautiful coriander leaf and some of the stalks as well. They also contain quite a bit of flavor, so don't be tempted to discard them too soon when you have them on your counter. They're still usable. So now we just added in just a bit of coriander, about a teaspoon, and another teaspoon of chopped basil. I'm just going to give that a quick mixture. And now just to complete this beautiful dish, we're just going to incorporate our meat in there. And just a little bit of water. So I'm just going to give that a quick mixture. Remember, the idea is to just coat the meat. And I'm also adding very little amounts of liquid. Remember, it's not really to be served like a sauce or a stew. It should actually be quite a very dry mixture, or more of a very, very puree-like consistency. So we're just going to keep mixing that as we allow the liquid to really just cook down. So remember, one particular technique to really get a nice consistency of the sauce: don't add too much sauce too much milk or liquid or stock at once. Don't add too much at one time. Always allow the liquid to cook off slowly, because it actually develops flavors as it continues. So you will actually start to notice that the longer it continues to cook and the more viscous the mixture becomes, it's actually going to start coating your meat really, really well. So I'm also just going to take most of this off the way now. And as I said, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very simple dish. And as I said, among the many recipes that we'll be bringing to you this particular Christmas season are some of the most beautiful, easiest grandma recipes out there. And we are also going to be previewing a couple of recipes from different locations all over Africa and Kenya. And we're just going to be bringing them over and over. And we're just going to be showing you some beautiful techniques you can go with during this season. So very simply, I'm just going to start off by spooning off some of that rice. So I'm just going to use this particular bowl to portion out. I'm just going to give that beautiful rice a mixture. So for those who are just catching up, we added a bit of the pumpkin seeds in there. We added some dried marjoram. Then we added some fresh coriander and just a bit of salt for seasoning. And we just steam the rice as we would cook it normally. But I particularly wanted to show you the technique of making it this way, because it also just gives you a better appearance, it gives you a bit of an aroma, and it actually visually appeals. So I'm just going to grab my plate. I'm just going to show you a technique I like to use to plate my rice. So just a very simple bowl, something that can measure out at least 1 full cup of rice. I would just place the plate right on top like that, and then I'll turn it around, give it a few seconds. That should actually slide out really easily on its own. And in the meantime, we're just going to give that beautiful, beautiful lamb one last mix. So as you notice this particular technique, towards the end of the cooking process, the mixture really starts to really dry off in the pan, and it actually starts to resemble a paste, and that's exactly what you're looking for. So we're just going to turn that out like that, and I'm just going to use a knife to spoon that onto the plate really quickly. So as I said, very, very simple. I bet most of you can now be able to do this on your own at home. And with that, I'm just going to plate those right around the rice. And probably just grab a bit of that beautiful sauce, and that goes right over the top as well. So simple as that, easy peasy. Most of you might actually be able to make this tonight. As I said, it's so simple, it's so appetizing, the aromas really stand out. And as I said, one of the most beautiful things about these grandma recipes, it only takes just a little bit of effort, and you can actually make a very simple dish really, really stand out on your dinner table. So with that, I think I've said most of what I could. There's plenty of recipes online. As I said, I like to bring a bit of a modern touch to it, a bit of my own creativity to it, but you're not limited to cook it the way we did. You are more than welcome to try your own particular ways, and if you feel that your recipe really appeals more to you, definitely worth going for. So from the studios, it has been a pleasure. You have been watching BrandPlus TV, and you've been tuned into Dinner Guide. My name is Chef Andy, and I've been your host as usual. And until the next episode, where we continue to bring you some beautifully inspired dishes from the region and around, I'm definitely going to call it a day. I'm going to now go sit down and enjoy this beautiful dish of lamb. And I hope you're all going to enjoy your dinner this evening as well. So from my end, have a lovely, beautiful Christmas season. Have a beautiful season with your friends, your family, your loved ones. And until the next episode, I wish you Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and see you soon. Have a lovely evening.